have to talk about your rugby career because it's a pretty fucking cracking one, and I really want to talk about it. So
sure.
you're now coaching your boyhood team where you started out your career. So how did you get signed up by the Cornish Pirates? Was it straight out of school? Was it early on, or
yeah?
Like you said, you had to work hard. So I don't know whether it was a.
That's right. So my best mate had secured a YTS deal, like youth training scheme with them, and I was still in college doing my studies, and I was playing for my local club, sister club, Mount Spey at the time, which, to be fair, had actually just signed a couple of like ex-Pirate players, so they're fairly good. You can imagine they're like 32, 33, still got some game time in them, and we literally rinsed that league. Like I basically stood out on the wing and just scored a load of tries, and it was no thing of my own. It was just literally they'd just give me the ball and I'd run over. And I played this one game against Houston, scored about 4. I think I scored 4 tries in the game. And Kev Mosley at the time, who's the head coach of Pirates, was like, look, we'd like to get you on loan, and we've got this game against Kendall coming up, and we'd like to play in it. And I was training with the Pirates I think it was on a Tuesday, and then I trained with Mount Spey on a Thursday. So I get sort of like a really good sort of standard of. Not saying that the Mount Spey was a bad standard of coaching.
I know what you mean. Yeah. The higher level.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to sort of like diss the club. But no, it was so I did that, and then he put me on loan. I played against Kendall, and I remember my mum watching me, and this winger that I was put up against, he was 6'4", and there's me at 5'11". Literally 10 stone soaking wet. My mum was like, "Oh my word, he's going to get absolutely hooned here." And to be fair, I did all right. Ended up chip and chase and playing, nearly scored and made a couple of breaks. Did all right tackle wise. Physicality, I wasn't really there. And then I meant to play the week after against Doncaster. That got cancelled, and then went back off loan. Well, then that's it. The next minute, he was like, "Look, we want to sign you on a youth training scheme for the year after." So I was essentially what my best mate was on. So I did that along my studies, and then within that, I got selected for the under-21 squad, England squad, wider squad, with players like Matt Cornwell, Matt Hampson, obviously who people would know with the Hambo Foundation. So I went and did a stint with the 21s, and then they offered me a full-time contract. And basically, I said to myself, do I so I carried on my studies, had this sort of like full-time contract. And I finished that end of the year of my studies, and then I took on the option to do another year of the contract with the Pirates. Before then, the year later, I went off to the Newport Gwent Dragons, had a year there, fairly bad injury, came back down to Launceston, semi-pro. So I dropped down out of the pro leagues, dropped into semi-pro rugby, and then managed to get myself back up by Exeter watching me that Launceston year. And then next minute, I've done 9 years then with Exeter. So it all started, a good old Cornish Pirates.
Exactly. Now you've come full circle. So
you
skipped over it. So my old man, he preaches, because he went to uni in Swansea, and he preaches about Swansea and Welsh rugby. So what was it like playing for the Dragons? Like, what is the culture like in a Welsh rugby club?
So I'm actually coaching in. So I'm doing a Thursday night in a local rugby club in here now, and it's the culture's good. It's tough. And I remember it always being tough. So this Newport was great, and then if you weren't playing for Newport, you go and play for a regional club. So I went and played for Vale. Alex Codlin was a coach there at the time, and I must have had about 3 or 4 games for them. And I remember playing against Swansea, right? And there's this lad playing on the back row. You probably know of him, Richie Pugh. Big blonde hair, and sort of like, he was the biggest nose I've ever met in my life, and I was just like, I don't like him like one bit.
Yeah.
Like that kind of player. Like he was niggly, he was into your face, whatever. And I was like, this is like welcome to Welsh rugby. That was the kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, funny enough, the year that I signed for Exeter, to 2 years down the trot, they signed Richie Pugh as well. Well, the nicest bloke I've ever met, and like we ended up being like really, really good mates. And I think you'll find a lot of rugby players will say like, they judge somebody on the rugby pitch and you judge them off the pitch, and usually when you judge them off the pitch, they're a lot nicer than they are on the pitch, just because of pure competitiveness.
Two separate people. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's like what was it? Is it me, myself, and Irene? Isn't it? You get Hank. Hank. Yeah, that comes out. The angriness comes out, and crazy. But the Welsh rugby in the regions, it is just so hard. It's tough. It's you're talking about. It's almost like some of the Welsh rugby players can like hit bigger than the Polynesians, and the Islanders, those kind of players. But I just always remember it being sort of like just you knew you were in for a game. There was no sort of like, this is an easy one today and rubbing your hands. It was literally like, no, your guards are up, you're ready to go. I don't think it's much changed, to be fair. And I think that's just purely with the culture and the coaches and how people have been coached. That's all going to stay in the Welsh rugby regions. And it's good. It's certainly challenging. I'd put it that way. It's very challenging.
Are the nights out still the stuff of legend they were when?
Well, to be fair, obviously with COVID, I don't know, but obviously one of my mates, he went for a stag in Cardiff the other day, and he said it was just mental. He said it was crazy. He said it was really, really good. He said the only thing we had to do was just book tables everywhere. He said, but people are still absolutely nuts. You get all the people, I suppose, from the valleys coming down and sort of partying and whatever. And next minute you're going to find a group that are a little bit crazy, and that's it, isn't it? You're into the full flow of it. So, I remember Cardiff always being a good night out, and I've done a couple of good nights in Swansea as well, which is good.
Mate, I've never had a night out in Wales. It's next on my list. That was
my
first night out in Manchester. Now you got Wales.
You can stay at mine, mate. Don't worry about it. We'll get you flow tested at the door, and then you can stay at mine.
Mate, honestly, between you and Cal Circa, I've got about 6 nights on the South Coast lined up now.
Mate, amazing. I'll tell you what. You can stay with me. You can you can stay with me on the Saturday night. On the Sunday, we could drive down to Cornish Pirates together.
Yeah.
You could even train. You could train, interview the boys, whatever, and then on the Monday night we go out. That'd be brilliant.
Mate, there must be some YouTube content we can make there for the Cornish Pirates.
There we go.
Take your bang average Scottish rugby player and see how he does in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do our recovery sessions in the pool, not in the pool, in the on the prom when we jump off the prom. That'd be great.
Oh mate, I would be fine because we have in our local town here. We used to traditionally pre-season training. We have this massive hill that we have next to our rugby pitch, and what we do there when we were playing under 18s is we'd use it for sprints in the pre-season, but then once training finished, you'd go down to the river, use the river as the shower in the bath, get yourself washed up and shit. We have showers, we just use the river optionally. We're not that sort of rugged.
Saving water. You're tight. Exactly. You're tight. You just immerse you're tight.
Environmentally friendly, and it saved the club a bit of cash. But what we then do is we get these massive bits of tarpaulin cover, put them on the hill, and we made our own sort of water slides, and we do that. So that, they're the best things you can do for it. Like as soon as you get water in a tarpaulin and just make it into a slide.
How good's that? Amazing. Get your fairy liquid down, then off you go.
That's mate. You used to go to Sainsbury's, 2 of you, and there'd be 1 boy who could drive, and there'd be 6 of you at this trolley with about 7 bottles of fairy liquid, 12 cases of beer, and you just go in, and you'd have the one kid who was 18 that could buy it for everybody.
Yeah, I bet there's. What was it? The what they call them, the checkout girls or lady or man looking at you like that. I know exactly what you're doing.
Exactly, because we live in such a small town. It was just like, yeah, as long as you're 18 that buys it, be like, you knew it was suspicious when he was coming out just a bunch of fivers. It didn't just have a lot of cash. You just clearly the boys had done a rip round, just everybody had a fiver.
And then you get the odds. Oh, there's a couple of quid because he could.
that one boy that's giving it all in coppers, and you're like, great, just cutting that out.
Yeah, coppers and 5p's.
Oh, mate. So as you said, you've done my job nicely for me, and you've got it hanging perfectly in the background. Your Exeter Chiefs jersey.
Yeah.
How was it winning the Premiership with the Exeter Chiefs? And then not only that, but how is the mentality? Because Exeter Chief is famous for its team bonding, team mentality, and togetherness. And
yeah, absolutely. I think and that's something that's sort of like been from old as well, like from the days down at the county grounds before they moved up to Sandy Park. But in terms of the club and the culture and staff, players, all that, it's what a place to be. Obviously you don't want to say the divide between Devon and Cornwall because that's quite talking about the
touchy subject.
Yeah, very touchy subject indeed. But I had 13 good years in Devon, and 9 of those were playing for the Chiefs. But it's just a club that have all strived and had a really good vision. It's all cliche, isn't it? When you arrive at a club and you say, oh, they've got a great vision and stuff like that, but they generally have. They've got a really good vision. And they want to be the best, and they've always wanted it. Tony Rowe, Rob Baxter, Ali Heifer, all the coaches, Ricky Pello, always wanted it. And the best thing they've done is their recruitment. So they recruit. Well, I'm not saying that because they recruited me, but they recruit good people. Recruit good people, good characters, and they never did like a London Welsh or a Bristol, and they where they go up and they kind of like pile in a load of experienced players. They've got people, especially in that championship year, that wanted to make the Prem. people that have never quite made the Prem, but have had that, like, the drive and the ambition to get there, and they'll do anything to get it. And I think that was their key thing, and that was their key ingredient. And then on top of that, all they did then was, over the years, they just tripped for really experienced people in Tom Waldrum, Dean Munn, a few marquee players there, and then obviously the likes of their academy system, Jack Knowles, Henry Slade, Sam Hill, those type of players, Ben Moon, etc. that have been there for a very long time, and they've just built this culture, and it makes it so much easier when people then join the club to just fit in, because they within like the first couple of days, you're going to know the culture, you know what's happening, you know where to sit, you know what to do, what not to do, and it was a great journey, and it certainly gave me a lot of life lessons as well, especially post rugby as well, like more into my coaching career than anything else, but also just your afterlife in terms of rugby, your kind of your outlook on things and how you look after yourself. So absolutely outstanding. And there it is, behind me, sort of sitting proudly on my wall.
As it should. I want to come back to your coaching, because that's the next stage I want to talk to you, because I think your coaching is going to be, I think you're, as an infectious person and infectious atmosphere, I think your coaching is going to be even better than your playing career personally. I say that as a guy who has all the experience of coaching in the world. A couple of reps of coaching the schools under 15s, but
mate, you were coaching me in that football. You were sitting in front of me, telling me where to go. I quite enjoyed that, Sam.
That's all I've got. I just had talking because it involved me not running. I was like, if I talk to Jessy, I don't have to run. That's what
you like Dennis. You like the old school Dennis Wise against playing for Chelsea. Brilliant.
Massive Chelsea fan. If you mention me to Dennis Wise, I'll tear up. But
there we go. Hey, and we can get Dennis Wise on over in 80 minutes.
If Dennis Wise or Frank Lampard or Gianfranco Zola came on, it'd be the worst podcast in the world, because it'd be 80 minutes of me just crying and telling them how much I love them. You'd have my old man sat next to me just talking to Gianfranco Zola. I wouldn't get a word in. It'd just be me, my dad, and Gianfranco Zola talking.
Amazing, brilliant.
So what was I going to ask you? We were talking. So when they were getting these players in the culture, and you were saying that championship year, was it very much like you said they got players that wanted to be in the Premiership? Was it? And then you got these players in when they're like when they were recruiting, was it almost like not rugby's the second most important thing, but it was your character outweighs your rugby ability? Like, you can be the best rugby player in the world, but if you're not right for the culture, you're not coming.
Yeah. So for me, and this is the way I kind of look at it now. So obviously you've got to have some sort of rugby ability out. There's no point in signing you, really. Okay, why have you signed him? He's a good bloke. Good on the smash. He is good on the smash. That is it. But like,
Team morale.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just going to pump the boys up every game. He's not going to be on the pitch. But for me, it's got to have a bit of both. So he's got to have the rugby ability, but then the character, and I think the character is the big thing, because essentially, if the guy if he's got great rugby ability, but he can't fit in with the squad, well then he's not going to add to that playing. He's not going to add to the team. He's not going to add, to his own personal development, because he's so isolated, and he will isolate himself from other people. If you've got a group of players there, well, that everyone wants to have that isolation period and go, I just want to be by myself or whatever. Everyone has that kind of, those moments. But if he has the collective moment where he's in the moment, whether it be training, in games, where he can gel and be with the squad and know the direction and the blueprint and the vision of the squad, and then input that as much as they can, as best they can, skill-wise, execution-wise, then you've got a decent machine there. And that was the key thing. So that's what they did. They brought in quite a few players. And then these players were all like champ players, or played at champs. Myself, Tommy Hayes, Nick Sestere, all players that are on the cusp, on the cusp of sort of, hitting the Prem. And we never really done it. But when you've got 50 odds or, 55 squad members that are like itching and ready to go, and they're playing against a team that have kind of been there and done it, well, who wants it more? And it's going to be the team that have just missed out or always missed out, and they're the people that are going to want it more. And the big thing that happened when we won the championship is that Rob didn't reinvent the wheel and go, yep, you're done. Pretty much everyone stayed. I'd say bar one or two, everyone stayed. And they had, maybe a 1 or 2 year contract or whatever. And, potentially some, the wages went up slightly because you're in the Prem. So you get a really nice incentive then because you're a Prem player now. You're getting paid, essentially a Prem wage, and you go right. Okay, and then it's that second season. We got touted with the second season syndrome, and I was like, what? And I can understand why people would, because they're like, well, whatever. But actually, when you think about it, these 55 squad members or whatever, however many there are now, okay, haven't had Premiership rugby, right? You've now given them a Premiership season, the build-up pre-season, blah, blah, blah. Well, what's going to happen now? They are going to want to show people that we want it and we deserve to be in it. And that was the mentality. It was like, you show Gloucester on the first outing that we are meant to be here, the Simpson Daniels and the Mike Tyndalls and all that. And that's what we did. We won the first game. Yeah. And then next minute, it was like, right, what's the next game? What's the next game? And everything became we're the underdogs. And you know what? We didn't mind for the first 3 or 4 years. But then at some stage, which obviously the Exeter Chiefs are now, they're not the underdogs anymore. They're the ones at the top. They're the Sarries of old. Everyone wants to knock them off. And Harlequins did that this year. So, when you get that, and I think this is why recruitment's so special, and it's what I'm learning now with my coaching, is that recruitment is so special. That if you don't get your recruitment right, you could be the best coach in the world, but if you haven't got the cattle to drive your vision and blueprint, well, there's no point. And I think that's where it goes back to that recruitment side of things.
No, I agree. I think when I look at being a coach, I think the most fascinating bit would be the way I've always looked at it, I imagine off seasons are more fun for coaches than during the season, because you get to do that, you get to do the scouting, you get to do the player reports, you get to do the sit down meetings and getting the players in.
Yeah.
And I think that must be the most fun you can have, especially because I imagine how it went when you guys got Cal in, seeing the happiness on the face of getting somebody in that wants to be at the club and something like that.
Exactly that. And with the Cal situation, it was very much, and I kind of spoke to, obviously he spoke on the podcast, obviously I listened to that today, and as long as you're having honest conversations with somebody and asking them what they want and what they need, and, I saw obviously Cal was leaving, and I was just like, I need to send him a message. And obviously we're obviously on the BlOKes group and stuff, and obviously we know each other that way and done a few Zoom calls together. But I was like, now I need to ask him where's he going. And when he said he had nothing, I was like, hold on a second, what we need to seriously look at this. And I spoke to my head coach and Gav Cattle, and next minute we looked at a few games. We talked about him. I knew he'd be the right fit in terms of character-wise, obviously, because I know him, and I think that's really important. And then it's all about the player. So you put everything back on the player, right? What do you want out of this year? And he was like, I need a challenge. I want this challenge. I want a challenge of, and I was like, that's brilliant. That is exactly what I need. Yeah. And my mentality around things at the moment, and this is what I've kind of learned, is that loyalty in rugby has kind of gone out of the way. It's starting to be removed because of the way that clubs are going. So everything's a business to a club now, which is fair enough. Like, everything's a business. You've got to understand that. And, I so more understand that now. And probably didn't understand that towards my latter years. And my outlook now is actually create a brand for yourself. So, for example, someone like Cal would, create a brand for himself rugby wise. But imagine if he could be the best individual player. Obviously, he's got to play collectively, but if he could be the best individual player for himself, well, he's going to make a massive input into the Pirates because he's scoring tries for the Pirates, which obviously brings a big sort of outlook for the Pirates. Well, both then entities are doing this. So it's a brand, it's a business, and we're going this way. Excellent. Yeah. So you're both working together that way. And then essentially, Cal's a young player. Well, what does he want? He would like to get back to the top. And, us as coaches who sit sort of just below the Prem, well, if he gets touted the next year and he has a good year and he go, well, we've essentially done a job. We don't want to lose him, don't get me wrong, but we've done a job, and he's created that brand for himself, and he's done that himself. So I feel like if players now out there, and if any players are listening to this, then create a brand for yourself. Get on your Instagrams, get on your stuff. Put yourself out there a little bit. Show the world what type of player you are, what kind of character you are, and I guarantee if that business likes the brand, and you want to come in, you want to make a challenge, and you want to get that club to its heights, then you both in terms of separate entities, but collectively you're going in the right direction.
Exactly. It's like we were discussing Lionel Messi before with his contract. He gets the contract because he not only helps himself, but he takes the club with him. I think it was I saw today, obviously, my interest in social media through my work. PSG gained something like 19 million followers in 48 hours or something like that.
Absolutely crazy, isn't it? And like,
there's only one way that direction's going, is up.
Exactly. And I'd like to know, like, in terms of like shirt sales and stuff, like where that's gone now, and this is the thing, and this is where my mentality has massively changed. I understand the loyalties back in the day, don't get me wrong, because money wasn't a huge driver, but because money's a huge driver, because clubs now have businesses, and players need to understand, actually, yes, you can be loyal to a club to a certain extent, but actually, no, not say no, but like create a brand for yourself. You've got to look after yourself, and I think that's really, really important. And as a coach, because you can go, two ways, because you want to keep a player, don't get me wrong, but also if they're going to fly the nest and leave home, that kind of thing, like, because he's such a good player, yeah, you're going to be, but like, God, what satisfaction would you be when somebody's gone up and they're making, headlines in the Premiership, and you as a coach have had, something to do with that person, or you've given him, a few of those things. So I think, creating a brand's absolutely massive, and I completely agree with you, Sam.
Well, especially if you say, because back, like you said as well, so if you get the right character, Cal could then have, say, like, God forbid, I like Cal at the Pirates, I think it's a good choice and it stays, but say if he then does, and then he has a friend who's in a similar situation that he was, when he was, in my opinion, unjustly let go, he will then be like, get on the phone to Matt Jess, get to the Pirates, stay to the Pirates, because like he'll reward the club back to it. He will preach the good word about Pirates, like you said.
Completely agree, and so that
like you said, like loyalty to a club, like it may not be himself being loyal, but in terms of being an ambassador for the club, he's loyal.
Exactly, and helping the club out, and I think that's really, really important, because at the end of the day, if you have this experience and good positive experiences, you're gonna talk about things, don't they, in terms of going around in full talk about full circle, me going back to the Pirates, but like that is right. So if somebody's had a really good experience there and they've enjoyed it, and they know that somebody else is going to potentially have that and gain for themselves, then they're going to pass you on, which is great. So no, I completely agree with that, and I think that's a really, really good point.
Right, mate, we're getting there. I wanted to talk about your coaching. And we're getting really good talking about these people and brand loyalty and players, and how the sport is almost, once you get to the pro levels, the sport is almost an afterthought, because you have to be a good rugby player to play rugby at a high level. It's like a given, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So I was talking about this with Cal, have you ever seen The Coach's Rules for Life on Netflix?
I haven't, no.
It's so good. I honestly, I'm
going to have to write this down. Coach's Rules
for Life. It's a little short 5 or 6 episode documentary.
Right, I'm in. Okay.
But they literally, it's 6 different coaches, and it's like, so you've got Jose Mourinho on there.
Yeah. You've
got Doc Rivers, who's a basketball coach, and he coached the Boston Celtics when they had their super team. They had Kevin Garnett and people like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and Doc Rivers and Mourinho are the 2 episodes that stick out for me, because they basically just went, I'm not here to teach people how to play this sport. Like, you gave me Cristiano Ronaldo, the best player in the world at the time. What am I going to tell him about playing football that he doesn't already know? But what I can teach him is how to be in the team and how to be a team player and stuff like that. So, is that how you approach coaching as a coach? Is that what you're trying to do, or?
Yeah, I suppose I do, but it depends, because it depends what type of person you're coaching at the time. So, for me, it's like if you could give them, because essentially they can all play rugby, but they might have to scrub up on a bit of their development in terms of a skill which they're going to have to maybe replicate week in, week out, for example, high ball skills or kicking. So that side of things, I'm really interested in, because if I could change somebody in terms of give them a few sort of, pointers or tips in terms of, executing that skill to a better, execute that skill to a better outcome, then I will concentrate on that development. And then it's all dependent on the age. So, for example, if you're, and this is why I look at it. So, if you're around that 18 to young 20s, you could change things without drastically mucking up their routine and memory, which they've probably inputted to themselves for a long time. Whereas like a 20, a bit like the Cristiano Ronaldo scenario, like somebody's at 28, 29, 30, you're not going to massively change them. And the time that you spend to go in there to change that type of skill, or that sort of really small intrinsic part of their skill set, you're wasting your time, But what you can do is you could sort of show them. And I think that's a big thing. So if you start to show them, some of their behaviors, and what they're doing and what you want. So you show them the standard. They are able then to look at something and go, no, do you know what? I understand that. I'm not really carrying on the out, so this is what I'll do now. And I'll start getting the ball carrying on the out, for example, as a forward. So I look at it in terms of like the age and their age range. So the younger they are, the more you can add and input their development. And I think that's really key. Whereas the older they are, they've been surrounded and used to something that is in their sort of, I say, repertoire, for a long time. And it's about then for me as a coach, I'd look and go, well, do I need to input that, or do I need to ask that question to him? So for example, a back three player, right? What do you want to work on? Okay, my high ball skills and kicking. Okay, brilliant. Okay, I need to see you, replicate these and do these, for a couple, a couple of clips of you doing it, and then I can take a look and break it down. So I think the younger they are, the more you break it down. The older they are, you show them a standard and sort of like, show them the behavior that they want, and they should be able to start to integrate and get themselves. And that's what I like, especially in the development part of coaching.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. No, I couldn't agree more. just no, you're wrong, mate. I've got it sussed, and you're wrong.
Yeah. But I think I like the point that you make, like the Jose Mourinho's and stuff like that, in terms of when you know they've got enough knowledge and they know enough about the game. It's not about coaching them the small parts. It's about what they do and how they fit into the bigger picture. And I think that's really key. And that's something that probably I've not had huge amount. I've more coached in the development side of things, and it's something that I'm starting to get used to. And Gav and Alan down at the Corners Pirates, they're a couple of coaches that I'm massively going to learn off, and Chris Morgan, obviously, that I could learn off because they've been in that environment a little bit longer than me, but in a more of a full-time based environment as well. So I'm kind of like, sort of like those little things like that, watching, Netflix, thing like that for me is going to be gold dust, because I'm just like you sponge it in, you write down notes and stuff. So it's great.
Yeah. Mate, I have tons of recommendations. I must have completed Netflix during lockdown 1 up here. So, because as you know, Scotland was much stricter than England. So we were sitting in your house and your garden was your best friend.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Last quick question before we get on to the teammate section, and I'll let you get on your merry way.
No
what would your advice be to a young budding coach?
Oh, young budding coach.
Like one piece of gold dust you wish you could give, somebody could have given you on day one of coaching.
Yeah. Don't be afraid of making mistakes.
That sounds like the best advice.
Yeah. I think as a coach, you can overthink, and you want things, because you're a coach and you know what coaches have been like, you want things to be perfect. But actually, if you're taking a session and that session doesn't go well to your standard, the players don't know, because they're focused on the game or the skill of the exercise. Whereas you can go back, you can review it, you can write down what I could do better, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't put pressure on yourself.
There we go. Short and sweet. I like that as well.
Yeah.